Cost of Victory, Book 1 of the Unseen Scar series by C.R. Saxon. Chapter 31. Zephyr! A short, muscular woman with salted black hair walked in. It's nice to see you're well. A smile blossomed on his lips as he ran over and hugged her. Aunt Tanalia! She hugged him back. Are you up for a visit? Onyx's eyes brightened at the thought of an actual conversation. Just as Aguia said, a week later a counselor came and evaluated him. But the woman said nothing beyond her little assessment. That had been days ago. He was starting to worry. Zephyr shook his head. That was the last thing he wanted to think about. Golden hands expressed emotions his words never could, even if she didn't know what the gestures meant. Thank you, Aunt Tanalia. I was about to take up puppetry for something to do. And someone to talk to. Tanalia laughed. You look much better. I feel better, thank you. I'm pleased to inform you, you've been cleared. Your mind's perfectly healthy. Jumping forward, he squeezed her tightly again, thanking whatever deity decided to end his torture. His entire body shook. The idea of solitude never seemed so intense, but this last month was torture. He never realized how much he needed people. Guiding him to the lounging area, she motioned him to sit next to her. Can you tell me what started all this? Shaking his head, he sighed, tapped his fingers together, and turned his palms up. There was Azute. That was settling down when Ferdinand came back from some vacation or another. Then the next thing I know, I can't sleep. When Zephyr mentioned his cousin's name, his eyes dimmed. It startled Tanalia. What's wrong? Leaning back, he studied her. What? You look sad. What's troubling you? A golden hand chopped at the air, then turned palm up, then palm down and back up. I'm not sad. Bored? Yes. Painfully bored. You don't look bored, she insisted. Standing, he walked over to the mirror. No. Zephyr? Why are his eyes here? I'm not selfish. I'm not like him. The elf's words echoed through his head. You've noticed. It's the very thing inside you. Zephyr, there's a number of things you need to know. Why? Closing his eyes, the prince centered himself and painted on a smile before turning to his aunt. I have to figure this out. About what? She studied him for a long moment. Actually, why don't we take a stroll? The gardens are beautiful right now. A pleased smile overcame the fake one, allowing him to push aside the elf's words. That sounds lovely. Elby knocked timidly at the door of his mentor's lab. He really tried. He asked everyone. John was even kind enough to study the disc with him, but neither of them could make any sense of it. The response Master Ludwig gave was less than inviting. The more Elby struggled, the more he realized the man was right. It was unbearably frustrating. He needed to get the basics down and everything after, before bothering with the discs. But admitting defeat. Ferdinand's voice welcomed him in. I failed, and he had to rescue me. Elby felt even more useless and stupid. Worse, Ferdinand was seriously hurt. How do I face him? But if he put this off any longer, he'd fall too far behind. How may I help you, Lord Albarat? Ferdinand gave Elby his usual pleasant smile, keeping the weariness off his face. I tried this entire time, I really did. I searched everything. I asked everyone. I'm sorry, but I couldn't complete the assignment. Ferdinand turned a blank face to him. How do viruses work, John? Huh? John raised an eyebrow. I would have thought you'd know that one by now. They invade a host cell to replicate. Ferdinand spoke, though it was hard to tell who he was talking to. They haven't evolved to learn magic. Excuse me? Reinforcing his expressionless stone mask, Ferdinand continued. Either they found a way to disappear, or the healers aren't giving me real samples. They're lying to you? Feels like it. Still, what if? Something was off and had been eating away at Ferdinand. Assuming they aren't, what would cause a virus to disappear from 20 samples in 2 days? They were switched along the line? Less conspiracy theory, and more scientific explanation. Ferdinand walked stiffly up to Elby. Pathetic. But what did you learn? What? Elby blinked away frustrated tears. I wasn't able to start the assignment. How could I learn anything? Where's the disc? Ferdinand smiled encouragingly. He knew all the effort Elby put into this. Now it was time to teach. Taking the disc from Elby, Ferdinand placed it on a work table. Show me everything you tried working out the answer. Making children cry. You're a great villain. Elby walked up and opened it. Show me everything you did to this disc. Dissecting the virus, learning the truth, it made him sick. How did I miss this? But even as he retched and berated himself, he saw what the thing was. One step at a time, he took it apart in his mind until all the pieces laid before him. Retreating into himself, he grabbed each piece, going over the best way to break it. Like the virus from that memory, the disc's pieces laid out before him. It was taken apart multiple times, and not with the proper tools. What did you do when you saw the insides? With this direction offered, Elby told Ferdinand that when he couldn't find anything similar in his research, he studied the layout. Ferdinand asked him a myriad of questions, starting with how he figured out how to open it, and ending with what responses he'd gotten from help requests. Please put it back together. Ferdinand walked to a table near the back of his lab. Incompetent. The disk was no longer usable. It had suffered too much damage. Even Ferdinand had difficulty taking one apart with the proper tools. He developed those microboards himself to be stronger and smaller to suit his needs, but there was only so much something that thin could take. Once it was back together, he told his apprentice to turn it on. It didn't, of course. Ferdinand knew it wouldn't. But this was the final straw for Elby, who started crying and apologizing. Knowing what the virus was, of course nothing made sense. This was something man-made. Even how it replicated, this wasn't too dissimilar from his bot. Only, these were created to hurt people. It was made to look and behave like a virus so it wouldn't be figured out. Why was I so blind, so naive? I refused to see it. Enjoy torturing children? That voice pulled him out of the memory. Ferdinand couldn't understand half the things the young boy said. Forcing back a grimace from the sand rubbing under his skin, he lifted a flinching Elby to the table, putting the boy at eye level. Elby, I'm impressed. This shocked his mentee into silence. You accomplished more than I expected. But I haven't... Elby trailed off with a stifled sob. I didn't think you'd get the case apart. Ferdinand put down a small tool made specifically for sealing and unsealing the cases. These are completely waterproof, perfectly sealed. I'm fascinated. You found a way to open it without destroying the case and breaking the circuitry inside. Do you know how amazing that is? And, important for me to know, I'll have to improve the design. Ferdinand showed his apprentice how to use the tool by opening the new disk. Look at the inside. You put every board back perfectly. It's wonderful. Then why won't it work? Elby sniffled. That sniffle egged on the cackling inside his skull, making him dizzy. Grabbing the edge of the table, Ferdinand steadied himself before continuing on. They were placed correctly, but the connections were destroyed upon removal. It couldn't be helped. I'm sorry I broke it, Elby whimpered. You're nothing but a burden. I wouldn't have given it to you if I needed it back in working order. Ferdinand mussed the boy's hair in an attempt to lighten the mood. You've gone above and beyond my expectations, Elby. I applaud you. Now, you've told me all you learned concerning this disk, but what did you learn trying to complete the assignment? The young tinkerer's mismatched eyes opened wide when he realized his mentor finally called him Elby. He'd been trying for as long as he'd known Ferdinand. I learned it's frustrating when no one can help you, even more so when they tell you not to bother with it. Did this stop you? No, it only made me want to try harder. Ferdinand stood in the middle of a room, staring at the beautiful gardens outside the window. To anyone looking from the outside, they'd see a skin-wrapped skeleton in fancy clothing, standing peacefully in the middle of a sea of tranquility. Any telepath, however, would feel something vastly different. Darkness closed in, stilling the vibrancy sunrise offered. It killed the life and everything around him, for as far as his eyes could see lay a desolate world of death and destruction. There he stood, in the center of it all. This was the work of his hands. His blood-soaked, guilty hands. Swallowing hard, Ferdinand closed his eyes against that memory, and the laughing voice. Why is it back? Why won't it go away? Good. What else did you learn? I learned what failure feels like. I've always done things well. I'm happy working hard to learn, but it doesn't feel nice, does it? No, Elby blushed. Did you learn anything else, Elby? His pupil gave him a strange look. I learned you're scary smart. Do you honestly believe what you said, or are you giving Evelyn someone to hate? Ferdinand closed his eyes. You didn't kill anybody. You stopped someone else from killing more. Hiding behind his hands, Ferdinand leaned forward. I'm not a child. I know the truth. I'm not lying, John insisted. My incompetence led to their deaths. How is that not murder? Guilt and anger screamed out of him as he leapt to his feet. If I'd noticed sooner, all the data was right there from the very beginning. I missed it. Millions, John. I killed millions because I overlooked obvious, blatant discrepancies. No one as incompetent as him could be intelligent. I'm no smarter than you. I only have more years of experience. Ferdinand resealed the disk he'd opened. What am I doing? How could I ever hope to teach anyone? I want this to be over. Swallowing hard, Ferdinand pushed those thoughts out of his head. You didn't complete the assignment, but you learned what I wanted you to. What? First, people will tell you all sorts of things, but in the end, if you want to do something, then you should keep trying. Selfish child. Looking Elby straight in the eye, Ferdinand continued on. Second, failure, regardless of how it feels, is okay. If we only try what we know we can do, we'll never grow. We'll have no hope of discovering our potential. It's important. Failing at something beyond us, it gives us a target, a goal to reach. Once we reach it, we should find another goal. Do you understand? Elby nodded. I think so. Good. Elby, you're talented. The potential I see in you is astounding. I want you to reach it. You have to do the work, but I want to help you with what I can. Thank you. Elby looked at his hands bashfully. Will you teach me the lessons you were going to teach before break? I'd be happy to. Why are you finally calling me Elby? I've asked you to forever. Ferdinand blushed. When addressing those higher or lower than us in status, isn't it polite to use the person's title? No one's lower than you. Yes? You've shown you're as capable as I am. You've figured out more about these discs than anyone else. This puts you easily on par with me, at least as far as the sciences go. That voice laughed uncontrollably. Please, leave me alone. He'd have to start listening to music again. Joy filled Elby's heart. Really? Yes. Now, concerning these discs, and my other inventions, you won't ask about them again till after you've completed your apprenticeship. Then I'll be happy to teach you. Agreed? Yes, sir. Ferdinand smiled. We'll restart our sessions tomorrow. Do you need a new time, or does the same one work for you? The same time works for me. Elby jumped down and ran out. Ferdinand watched his pupil dash away. Happy Elby was more cheerful when leaving than arriving. That was amazing. Oya appeared out of thin air, tugging at the chain around her neck. Oya. A gentle smile took over his lips. It was greedy. He was a terrible person. But, seeing her, the warmth her presence always brought. Not really. I only told him the truth. Thank you for staying out of sight till he left. It wasn't the time to intrude. You know, it makes no sense. His heart quickened. I haven't offended her, have I? Living without that warmth, that joy and sunshine, living without her brightness, even if it only magnified his selfishness. He didn't want to do anything to drive her away. What is? How someone who feels incompetent at everything can make others feel capable of anything. Oya's comment caught him off guard and drained every ounce of color from him. Off like a rocket he shot through tall grass and soft ground. Run! Run faster! Get away! Escape! He ran till he couldn't see the death, couldn't feel the blood. Picking up speed, he tried outrunning the pain and failure, tried outrunning his self-loathing, but that companion refused to be left behind. Continually it whispered in his ear, "You're a failure. Your own stupidity stole her family." It laughed at all he'd failed. There was no redemption, no hope. Regardless of how you feel, I know exactly how remarkable you are. One day you'll see it. I didn't know you were capable of anything, defect. It was all Ferdinand could do to keep his stone mask in place. Her words hurt. They were physically painful, but they felt like something he'd always seen, always wanted, but never had. Please stay with me. I know you don't need me anymore, but please, let me be greedy. Pink tinged his cheeks, slowly darkening until it consumed his face. Carefully, uncertainly, how do you say something like this? Can someone like me hope? Looking away, Ferdinand crafted a smile he'd never worn before. It was small. Smaller than he intended, as if too scared of what she'd do for saying something so greedy, something that didn't take her thoughts into account. But he turned it to her nonetheless. Her warmth and light, living without it. I don't deserve her. He knew this was true, knew this more fully than any of his inventions. But could he be selfish this once? Was that okay? Thank you, friend.